Chag Sameach, everyone. Good Yom Tov. Today is Hoshana Rabbah, so there's also a tradition to wish you a good kfittel, referring to a small note. Yes, the gates of heaven are technically closed to our tefillot. They're not like they were on Yom Kippur when they were wide open, inviting us in. But we believe that we can slip a little note through the mailbox. We can pass a little note underneath the door, underneath the gates, that would possibly alter or adjust the judgment for it to be more favorable. So a good kfittel to everyone and a good Yom Tov. This last day, Shmini Atzeret and Simchat Torah, is a strange day. Question is, what is this day all about? Our sages tell us that God says, Kasha alai fridaschem. It's hard to separate. It's hard to say goodbye. And so God asks us to spend one more day with Him. Make one more holiday. There are no specific mitzvot on this holiday. It is just a celebration of our relationship with the divine. It's just a celebration of our connection to the Almighty. We don't shake the lulav and esrog. According to some, we don't even sit in the sukkah. And even those who do sit in the sukkah, you don't recite a bracha over it. It is really just about connecting with God, connecting with the divine. I wonder if there is another message. For the entire week of Sukkot, we've been sitting in this beautiful structure, we've been eating our meals, we've been sleeping in this space, we've been hanging out in this space. Following Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, following the experience of connecting with God, connecting with the Almighty, feeling His presence so profoundly, we acknowledge that life cannot go on as normal. We acknowledge that we have to change ourselves. We have to adjust how we live. And so following Yom Kippur, we do so. Following Yom Kippur, we change how we live. We change our routine. Every single day we go out into the sukkah, we eat our meals here, we spend our time here, we hang out here, and God promises that He is here with us in the sukkah. We cannot go back to a regular life. We cannot go back to the winter, to the fall, to day in, day out, school and work, and taking care of everything we need without one more day. That day isn't about Sukkot. That day isn't about Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. It's not about forgiveness. That day is about spending time in our homes, saying, how do we integrate the messages of the last month and a half into our daily lives? How do we internalize these messages so that we don't need an Elul, we don't need a Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur or a Sukkot to feel God's presence in our homes? On these days ahead, we're going to be observing some of the most special, some of the most happy days of Sukkot, of the calendar, of the Jewish year. These are such special, and in our community, historically speaking, they've been such uplifting days, such inspiring days. This year is obviously going to be different. We can't say it again. We said it so many times. Perhaps this year, more so than ever before, though it is true every year, the work of Shmini Atzeret and Simchat Torah is to process, to think about the last 3 weeks, to think about all the things that we've said over and over again, to think about the fact that we've said every single day, 2 times a day, Achas sha'alti me'es Hashem, osa avakish. There's one thing we ask from God, shifti beveis Hashem, to sit in the house of God. Perhaps the challenge, the opportunity of Shmini Atzeret and Simchat Torah every year, but especially this year, is to think about how to make our homes a Beis Hashem, how to bring God into our homes. The coming months, the Jewish focus is not going to be on shul, it's not going to be on school. The Jewish focus is going to be on our homes. How do we make our homes thriving centers of Jewish life? How do we bring Judaism not just to the doorpost of our home, not just to the mezuzot, but inside our homes? How do we sit in a sukkah and take the messages of this vulnerable, beautiful space, bring it into our homes and say, where do we find God inside our homes? That's the work of Shmini Atzeret. That's the work of Simchat Torah this year. Taking these messages of an incredible and inspiring and a very, very different Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot, and saying, what do I want to be true about my house, about my home and my family in the year ahead? I do want to mention one thing, because it's hard to ignore at this point. The news of what's going on, what's taking place in Brooklyn, the protests, the government edicts, and the reaction of some segment of the Jewish community there is so troubling. It's so disturbing. I'm not here to offer political commentary on the government's decision, the local government's decision there. I obviously play no role in that local government. I didn't vote for that local government. And I understand the legitimate concern and criticism of the Jewish community being singled out by local political leadership. That being said, the reaction of our community there, and I specifically say our community, because it's become so easy for us to look at them and us, and we have to challenge ourselves to think about that, the one thing we all seek, which is to sit together in the house of Lord. What's it going to take to create a Kiddush Hashem? What's it going to take to sanctify God's name in this environment? What took place in Brooklyn is such a Chillul Hashem. It is such a desecration of God's names. You and I know that this is not, these are not Jewish values. The arrogance on display was troubling, disturbing, and so disappointing. And so in the coming weeks and the coming months, we have to work incredibly hard to make a Kiddush Hashem, to be particular about being humble, to be particular about being safe, to be particular about being respectful of everyone around us, because we can no longer live in an insular community just worrying about ourselves. It's been so wonderful these past couple of weeks to see some people return to our shul, to have an opportunity to connect with all of you. And I hope that we will continue to find ways to connect with each other. I hope as a community we'll continue to find ways to have chesed events like we did this past week, beautiful events making mugs and treats for children in need. I hope we find opportunities to connect with each other privately, like the exchanging of special Yom Tov snacks and gifts that is taking place today amongst some of the families. I hope we find opportunities to connect with each other over Limud Torah, over learning, as we have been doing on a minimal level through our Rambam share and a new Parsha share oriented around Sefer Bereshis. And I hope to hear more ideas and more opportunities for us to connect. On this, the final days of the High Holy Days, they have been different. They have presented to us challenges. We have felt vulnerable and we have felt inspired at the same time. In the coming weeks and the coming months, I hope we continue to find opportunity to be vulnerable with each other, to be inspired by each other, and to care deeply for each other. And the work we do in our community, the work we do in our shul, will make a Kiddush Hashem that will counteract the terrible, despicable Chillul Hashem that took place in Brooklyn. Wishing each of you a Chag Sameach, wishing each of you a good kfittel, the last moments to submit the most precious, the most personal tefillot to our Kadosh Baruch Hu. And please God, the year ahead, the weeks, the months, and the year ahead will be healthy, will be inspiring, will be one in which we grow as individuals, as families, and as a community, to see good health and good happiness and good friends in the year ahead. Chag Sameach.